little bit jealous about where you are right now. Elisa's coming from California. So the rest of us are in Michigan or in some snowy weather because we have Susan from Colorado. We do have Sabrina who should be coming in, but she's out in BC. So I don't know. Her weather has been kind of also mild, but we're a little jealous of you, Elisa.
I'm sending good weather your way.
Please do. We appreciate that. Wonderful. And hello, Sue. How are you? Sue from Colorado. Oh, you're there. Oh, your home is so lovely. Ooh. It's funny. We get to see all kinds of backgrounds, which is really fun and exciting. But it does require us to have our house really nice and tidy, right?
I couldn't get my mute button to unmute, so I'm good to see you.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad.
Shout out to Carolyn. Hey, Carolyn, friend of mine, and Disa Webb, who I haven't seen forever. And I'll
Hi, Disa. Hi, Sue. Carolyn.
I'm so glad that we have like this commonality. That's so wonderful. Oh my goodness. And Susan H. Well, I've got two Susan H's. So Hoyt. Hello, Susan Hoyt. Hello, lovely. How are you? Hi.
I got panicky. I couldn't open my computer.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're all okay. We are all fine. And Stephanie, you're here. Hi, lovely. Hi. I'm so glad to see your face. Welcome. Wonderful. It's so great to see you. Oh my goodness. My heart is filling every time I say someone's name. I'm like, again, my heart just fills up so much with so much love and joy for you all. Well, goodness, we're just going to get into it. So I hope that you've gotten my newsletter. I know, Stephanie, you probably didn't get it because if you just signed in this morning, I sent out a newsletter. Oh, your furry friend. My furry friend would be sitting right here on my lap if I let her come down. But hopefully you've made your space comfortable for yourself. And we're going to take the next 2 hours to really let that space outside of wherever we are just be there. And we're going to take hopefully some time just for ourselves. And I encourage you to do whatever feels comfortable for you vis-a-vis having your cameras on or off. It doesn't matter to me. This is your time and your space. So please choose to do whatever feels good for you. Oh, I've just got Holly coming in. And so we are going to, I'm just going to quickly talk about whatever you're going to need. So hopefully you did see the email about maybe having some blocks, a blanket, a bolster. I mean, not all of us have bolsters, but you don't need a bolster. You can use easily a couch pillow, even just to sit down, and make sure you're comfortable wherever you're sitting, because we are going to be sitting for the first hour of the workshop, and then we're going to be moving for the second hour of the workshop, and it'll go so quickly. So I know that from a teaching perspective, it just goes, we're done. So hopefully you'll absorb the time as well. Welcome, Holly. I just want to say hello before we start. Hello, lovely. So let's go ahead and maybe mute all of our screens. And if you have questions throughout, I just want to tell you, I'm going to hang around at the end of the workshop to answer any questions. But if there's questions that are like, oh, I want to ask that question, put it in the chat. And if I will try to answer it right away, if I see it, if I miss it, I'll answer it at the end, but just so that you get it in there so I can answer at the end. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we're going to get right away and we're going to get going. So I'm just going to make sure. Here we go. All right. Just going to get everybody. Want to keep your good. All right. All right. Perfect. All right. All right. So today we are going to be talking about the Psoas. So this workshop is going to be centering around the hip flexor complex, and I'm going to talk in detail about that as we go through, obviously, the next hour. Today is a special day for me. It's my mother's birthday. I'm dedicating today's practice, today's workshop, to her. She passed away about 7 years ago, and it is because of her that I am doing this workshop. A lot of my learning about trauma was often a lot about my mom, and I will talk a little bit about that just to put things into context. But she is my true warrior, so I'm dedicating today to her. Introduction to the outline. So today we're going to be doing, if you did see the email, this is going to be set up in 2 parts. The first part of the workshop is going to be a little bit more about the ins and outs, the functionality of the Psoas, its connection to our emotional body, connection to our sympathetic, our nervous system, and how the physiological response to things that happen, stresses, trauma, things, how it reacts to from our nervous system into our physical body. Like I said, we're going to be structuring this in 2 parts. So the first part, there's going to be a little bit of anatomy. And I know for some it might seem a little dry, but I think it's important that we put things into perspective to be able to truly get a full understanding of the Psoas in its relationship to where it's located, in its relationship to all the different areas and how it's all connected. So it's important to have that basis of information so that we can move forward to understand its effects on our nervous system. The second part of our workshop will be part 2, and we're going to be doing an asana practice. So we're going to be physically moving. It's going to be a very gentle practice, and I have to encourage you to just take this as a really gentle opening it's not going to be a vigorous practice. It's not the intention of this workshop. It is to really incite this opportunity of surrender and stress release. And so that's really the premise of our asana practice. We are going to end the asana practice with what's called the Psoas shake. It is a deep stress releasing technique. And some of you have done it with me before, not perhaps in the same context as a workshop like this, where we're going to be going kind of into detail, but then ending with the asana. I may have done it or incorporated it into a yoga class, but we are going to end with that. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about it as we go through the workshop so you understand what it is going to entail. I myself, my name is Sharon Hillenar. I think most of you know me, Carolyn. I think we're introducing or meeting ourselves for the first time, I think. And so welcome. I am a 200 RYT. I'm almost a 500 RYT registered yoga teacher. I'm in the process of finishing my 500-hour teacher training course. I am also a certified personal trainer. I'm also a corrective exercise specialist, and I am a certified Pilates instructor. I have about 7-8 years worth of physical fitness experience and training that I've been teaching in this industry for about 7-8 years now. Still on my learning journey, as we all are in life. I am from Canada originally. Most of you know that, from Montreal. So if I say a few times, it's just part of my DNA. I can't help it. My parents are originally from the Netherlands, but I was born in Montreal, Canada. And I operate a small studio out of my home. Right now, everything's virtual, so we're doing all of our trainings online. But you guys all know that stuff. So let's get into it. We're just going to dive right into it. So the mighty Psoas. The mighty Psoas. So the Psoas muscle consists of 2 muscles. It consists of a Psoas major and a Psoas minor. So there's a bigger one and a smaller one. The origin point, and you'll see on the diagram here, it starts from T12. So your thoracic spine, the last thoracic spine at the top, and it runs all the way down to your lumbar, the lower lumbar area. The insertion point, and I know, again, for those of you who are new to anatomy, please don't get caught up and worried about whether you know this or not. Please, let's just set that off to the side. Let's just be open to whatever information we get. And if it seems a little confusing, please don't be too stressed about it. I know for me, it was something that I had to kind of let go of too. So the Psoas insertion point inserts to the lesser trochanter of the femur. So the femur is that long bone in our thigh quad area. And the minor, so the major connects from the femur to the spine, and the minor connects to the pelvis to the spine. It is known as a dual muscle because there is one on either side of our pelvis. The iliacus muscle attaches from the femur to the iliac bone. So it goes down and through the iliacus. And the iliacus muscle is kind of on the inside of the pelvis region. The psoas is part of a larger muscle group called the iliopsoas because of its location and its connection in with the iliacus. It kind of meets and merges together. It is part of a larger complex called the iliopsoas. So you may have heard this as an iliopsoas. You may have heard it as the psoas muscle. And when they work together to contract, it creates flexion of the hip. And I'll show you what flexion, extension, all that means in a little bit. The hip flexor complex aids in tilting the pelvis anteriorly. So when you think of those hip bones at the top of your bones and you tilt your pelvis forward, it creates an arch on the low back. If you've trained with me, you know that I talk a lot about that. It creates that that anterior tilt, and can cause sway back, which is a common postural dysfunction. A lot of us experience that, a lot of low back pain. The psoas helps to stabilize this region from too much of an anterior tilt. So it tries to kind of find that balance and keep it neutral. A tight psoas can be a major contributor to lordosis, where you have this very large low back arch. And the psoas, along with a group of other muscles, the multifidus, the semispinalis, the rotators, help to keep the lower spine aligned. So it is a really, really important muscle, especially to keep our pelvic area and our low back in a neutral and safe space. The psoas lays deep to the anterior hip joint and the lower spine, and it is the strongest of the hip flexors. It is known as a biarticulate muscle, and it's a vital muscle for movement and stabilization of two joints. That's why it's called biarticulate, the iliofemoral joint, as well as the lumbar spine. It helps to transfer weight from the trunk to the legs. So it is a connecting point. It helps to balance out that weight, that force from the upper body to the lower body. While moving or standing, it helps to position the spine, pelvis, and femur in relation to each other. So they're always working together to try and balance each other out. And due to its location, it is essential to assisting with balance, nerve, and subtle energies. The psoas affects nerve innervation, not innovation, innervation, particularly at the lumbar nerve complex. And you'll see an image later a little bit about all the nerves that kind of run in that area. It is one of the longest muscles in the body. It is the only muscle in the body to connect the upper body and the lower body together. If some of you have heard me say, possibly, your legs start up here, it's because your iliopsoas or your psoas connects up right here and connects your upper body to your lower body. So if you've ever heard me say that, that's why I say that. It's considered a core muscle. There is a psoas major and psoas minor, as I said earlier. However, over time, the psoas minor may become extinct because we're no longer our bodies are no longer working in all fours. We are standing upright. The psoas minor was a contributor to positioning where we're on all fours. We've evolved since then. There are some people who don't even have a psoas minor. There are some people who only have one and not the other side. So, but they're seen as evolution happens, that the psoas minor will eventually perhaps no longer be there in our bodies. It is known as the psoas, the mighty psoas, as it is seen as one of the most important muscles in the human body. And we'll talk about that. And that's why we're doing this workshop, because it is such an integral muscle within the body, both physically as well as emotionally and spiritually. The diaphragm, psoas, and other stabilizing muscles in the back of the spine all connect in and around this region. So it connects to so much more within our body. It connects to our breathing, to our stabilizing muscles in our core. So it is just in a vital place that affects so much of the organs as well as our breathing. Now, there's discussion in the fitness world or in the physiology world about, is it a flexor, is it an extensor? We often think of the psoas as a hip flexor. But due to its proximity to other bundles of muscles, it can act as an extensor as well. Thomas Myers, who is very famous for his books called Anatomy Trains, he's wonderful. And he believes that the psoas has two dimensions to it, that it does act as an extensor and a flexor, and that he describes that the upper fibers of the psoas, act as help with flexion, and the lower fibers of the psoas help with extension. There's some debate still on that, but we don't have to worry too much about it. Due to its location of the psoas, it helps to support the internal organs, the pelvis, and the pelvic floor. It helps to massage the intestines, the kidneys, the liver, the spleen, the pancreas, the bladder, the stomach, the reproductive organs when it contracts. So again, as I said to you earlier, in the place where the psoas is located, it is just such a vital muscle. It does so much, and it works in conjunction to so much in our bodies that are vital to our well-being. The psoas is a reactor to stimuli, and due to its close proximity to deep visceral organs, the psoas is often the muscle that creates that gut feeling reaction. If you've ever been in a situation where you felt frightened or you felt scared or anxious, and you've got that deep feeling in your stomach, it is coming from a visceral reaction from your nervous system, but it's a reaction from your psoas. It is also known as the fight or flight muscle, and we will talk a bit more about that shortly. How does the psoas help us move our bodies? Well, basically, it helps us with running, it helps us with walking, it helps us with dancing, sitting, climbing stairs, hiking. Anytime you're moving your body, you are likely using your hip flexors or the psoas muscles. So you can't really, unless you're lying down and not really moving your body in an isometric way, you're likely going to be using your hip flexors. So it's a constant mover. It helps with flexion, stabilization, dorsiflexion, lateral flexion, extension. I have a little asterisk there because of that possible discussion about whether it's an extensor, and lateral rotator. Again, there's some discussion about whether it helps with lateral rotation. What is flexion? This is not me. This is my partner, my yoga instructor training, who helped me with some pictures. So in the far left picture, you've got Suzanne, who is doing some flexion. So basically walking upstairs, hiking, running, you name it. That's what we're talking about. That's what flexion looks like. Torso flexion, when we come into a forward bend, if you've been in my yoga classes, we've done forward folds. It is assisting with forward bends. It also helps with lateral flexion. And we'll be doing some of that in our asana practice today. The psoas and lifestyle. So gosh, because there's such an integral relationship of the psoas to stress, it is an area of our body that really absorbs a lot of our anxieties and stress on a daily, whenever we're experiencing them. Lifestyle today is not really what it used to be. I mean, we're inundated with being online all the time. There's this like feeling of being on 24 hours. We've got, devices that really don't allow us to kind of check out. We're living in a very, very go environment, busy all the time. And that is really stressful. That is really stressful on the body, stressful on the mind. Stress is not seen in today's society as really kind of an acceptable thing. There's this negative connotation when you express that you're feeling stressed or anxious. There's, and I'm hoping that as the world starts to recognize the importance, and I think changes are happening, that the impact of stress on our lives, how it impacts us so deeply, not just mentally, but physically, that these negative, perhaps interpretations of stress are going to hopefully start to become a little bit more accepting and understanding that stress is very, very impactful on our well-being. So, and stress isn't one of those things we often find ourselves, going to. A couple of days ago, I was at a hockey game with my son, and I was standing in line, and there was one dad who approached another dad and said, "Hey, how's it going?" And the one dad said, things are not so great. And the other dad just went off and started talking about, just didn't even like address it. Like there's this uncomfortableness when we talk about stress, but yet it's so important that we recognize that when we are feeling stressed, that we have an outlet. Because if we don't have an outlet, what happens is we hold it into our bodies. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to stress and trauma a little bit later on. But right, we have to let it out. Now, whether it's letting it out through physical fitness, through exercise, through meditation, through a yoga practice, through simply going for a walk, there's an important aspect to allowing stress to release from our body, because it's the more we hold on to it, oftentimes stress is held within the psoas muscle. So it really can impact our life significantly. And when it's held and it doesn't get released, it only exacerbates the feeling and makes it even worse. With the pandemic, we've now also been exposed to even more sedentary lifestyles. I mean, I've never seen myself sitting as much as I have in the last year since this pandemic. We're not necessarily walking from our cars to our jobs or going out to normal places, moving our bodies in regular ways. So sedentary lifestyle is also going to play a big role in the reaction to or effects of the psoas. So if we're sitting more, we've got tight psoas, it's going to affect our low back. It can affect us physically. It can then add on stress. If we've got stress on top of that, it seems like it's a little bit of a kind of a recipe for some physiological reactions to it at some point, maybe reacting as a low back issue, maybe a knee issue, other areas. Now, I'm going to talk just briefly about correct ways of sitting, given that we are sitting a lot more than perhaps, and I'm not saying, I don't want this to sound like you might be saying, I don't sit all the time. I'm not suggesting we're all doing that, but perhaps because we're maybe home a little bit more, we might be doing that a bit more than we typically would be doing if things were normal. So when it comes to sitting in a chair, I know this sounds so crazy, but there's a right way and when it comes to relationship to your psoas, there's a better way to sit so that you can release your psoas. Now you'll notice on the left side of the screen, Suzanne is sitting there and she's got her knees kind of pulled up in towards her chest. How many times have we found ourselves sitting on the couch like that? That's how I sit. Like I'm like, just watching a movie or watching something and I'm sitting like this. And I have to consciously let my legs release and bring them down. If you've taken a yoga class with me, what do I always encourage you to do? I always encourage you to sit yourself up on a bolster or something to raise your sits bones up so you can release the psoas muscle. If you've been in a crisscross position and you have tight psoas, it's going to feel uncomfortable and it's going to put more strain on the psoas. So on the left, she's sitting there, and in that case, her psoas is shortened. On the right, that would be where I'd want you to be. Prop yourself up. Let your knees fall below your psoas. So tomorrow at work, prop yourself up, and I bet you'll feel a little bit of release there because now you can lengthen your psoas muscle. By the way, I have this in a handout for you, so I'm going to send this to you, so don't feel like you have to remember all of this. Same thing with sitting on the floor. I mean, a lot of us feel very comfortable sitting on the floor, watching television and whatnot. But if you look at Suzanne's position here on the left, you'll notice she's got this rounding in through her spine. That's going to create that flexion in the spine. It's going to create that extension in the low back, and it's going to create tension in the hip flexors. So my recommendation to you, anytime you're sitting on the floor, if you are going to a regular yoga class, keep a bolster, keep a blanket nearby. It'll feel way more comfortable sitting up like Suzanne is on a blanket, just to raise yourself up. Not only are you going to find a bit more space in your hip flexors, but you're also going to find a bit more length in your spine. You can see the difference between Suzanne's spine on right and Suzanne's spine on the left. We always want to keep our spine nice and long and spacious. All right. Physical signs of a weak and shortened psoas. So how do you know? Now, I'm not a physician, so I want to premise that that if you have any sort of severe acute low back pain, first and foremost, always go and see your physician. So don't try to self-diagnose, and I'm not going to diagnose at all either. However, if you are experiencing a regular low back issues and whatnot, that it could be a sign of a tightened or weak psoas. In the United States, it's estimated that 149 million workdays are lost every year because of low back pain. With a total cost estimated at being 100 to 200 billion dollars a year of lost wages due to lost productivity. That is a staggering number. I've heard many of my colleagues back when I was working in office who just like, I threw my back out or things like that. And gosh, it just felt for them because they couldn't move, you know? So, and I think the effects of the last year, I'm very curious to see how that's going to translate for a lot of people in their bodies going forward. So hopefully people are being proactive about this. A common postural issue is lordosis or sway back. You'll notice that here, Suzanne has had a head that's jutted forward. Her low back is arching. She's got this rounding of the upper spine that is certainly going to throw her whole skeletal structure off and create this imbalance in different areas of her body. Over time, if that were truly her positioning, she will potentially experience low back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain. So we want to think of the body as all of the points of the body are connected. So if she's got a head that's jutted forward, it kind of streams downward. Just like if your feet are not positioned correctly, it streams upward through the body. Lower back pain, it can manifest itself when you're positioning your low back or your psoas is tight as low back pain, knee pain, constipation because of its location. It can create constipation, anxiety. We know that because of stress that may be held there. Groin pain, one leg longer than the other, because if you've got one psoas that's shorter than the other, it may manifest as one leg longer. I know I have that. I often have to really be careful because it throws my pelvis off. Shallow breathing. When you have a tight psoas, you're going to be finding yourself more in a rounded position. You're not going to be able to fully breathe. And we know that breath is essential to nourishing our body and also maintaining and relaxing our or calming our bodies down and our nervous systems down. Now, how do you relax your psoas? When we think of, oh, I'm tight through the hip flexors, what is your go-to, right? I'm guilty of it. I've done some really serious lunges, and I've been pretty aggressive with some of my stretches. Well, I'm here to tell you that is probably one way you don't want to do. You don't want to go into trying to stretch out the psoas. It is not recommended to go into deep stresses as it can cause pain and it can cause injury. So we want to kind of think of this as a leveling kind of process. You're kind of building up to be able to release the psoas very steadily and methodically. Also because of its location and the nature of its connection to our our nervous system, it's also important that you don't go in too aggressively as it can cause unease and anxiety. I have myself experienced that when I've gone into stretches and I can suddenly literally feel this like, oh, like I feel anxious all of a sudden. And I never really understood why. And it could have been that I just went into it a little bit too much. I may have been stressed. I may have been holding some tension there. So constructive rest pose is going to be the pose of choice. If you're feeling stressed, you've had a stressful day, if you feel like you haven't had an outlet, you weren't able to go for that walk, you weren't able to release through any sort of maybe talk therapy. And I say talk therapy a little bit more in a sense that you had a means to communicate your stress and you're feeling pent up, my first go-to would be constructive rest pose. Now, I know a lot of us are going to be like, oh gosh, it feels like I'm not doing anything. Well, that is completely the opposite of the truth. You are doing so much here. You're going to calm your body down. You're going to release the tension in within the psoas, and you're going to really be able to ground your body in and just bring your heightened awareness or anxiety down a notch. And we'll be doing this in our asana practice so you can feel it for yourself. Here's some other exercises. Again, I'm going to include this in our handout, so don't worry. You don't need to remember any of this because I think it's important that you just allow your mind to be free here. So I'm going to send this to you in a PDF format. But there are some exercises you can do to help strengthen and loosen the psoas. Single leg knee to chest. We've all done that in yoga, even just done it after a workout. Maybe you've lied down on the ground. Bridge pose, Setu Bandha Sarvangasana, a little bit of a tongue twister there. That is a wonderful pose to open up the front body. Now we're going to be doing all of these today, so you'll be able to experience them. Balasana, child's pose, I know it's one of my favorites. Definitely one to do before bed to really calm the nervous system down. So definitely one I recommend. Anjaneyasana, which is basically a kneeling lunge. We'll be doing that today as well. And upward facing dog. If you've done upward facing dog, you can almost imagine how it opens up the front body. It's a wonderful hip opener. Again, I say these are wonderful exercises. Do them, you know, especially maybe upward facing dog, maybe warm yourself up before you move into that. Exercises to strengthen your psoas. You'll notice this is me lying down on the ground. I've got one knee in towards my chest and I've got one leg lifted. That is really going to strengthen the psoas. And that's a wonderful exercise to do. And we'll be doing a rendition of this today. We've got our leg lifts, so the lower, we've got the straight leg raises, which is on the left, and we've got our lower and lifts on the right. This is a great exercise to strengthen the psoas, and because of its relationship to the core, it also helps to strengthen the core. So it kind of works all together. Again, this will be included in your handout. We've got a partial sit-up. So if you're sitting back halfway down and pulling back up, again, strengthening the core and also strengthening the psoas. If you've worked out with me in circuits, you've known that I'll probably tell you, try to focus more on the core because it will be focused on core. But in this case, you'll be focusing on strengthening the psoas. So your attention will be focused on the hips. Here's one exercise with the hip flexion with a band. This is a wonderful exercise to strengthen your psoas. Now, how do you know if you have a weak psoas? Well, you may have a bit of a posterior tilt in your pelvis. So if you find yourself with a bit more of the tilting of the pelvis is back, then your psoas might be might be weak and your glutes might be really strong and they may be tilting your pelvis back. So there are different things you can do to strengthen and to lengthen the psoas. So you'll have to kind of maybe see when you look in a mirror, where does your pelvis kind of lay in your body? The muscle of the soul. Now, this is the other portion of the workshop where we start to connect in with how it's connecting to our nervous system. I love this image of the silhouette of the body and a heart. I just love that. So the muscle of the soul, I talked to, let me just go back to that last slide. I talked to you a bit, I mentioned my mom, and I'll be talking a little bit about that shortly, but I learned of the psoas more when I went into my yoga teacher instructor training. And I took a course called the Warriors Program. And the Warriors Program was set up for PTSD survivors, those who had been to war. And it is a program that has helped to, that I learned, help people deal with PTSD. And when I first went to this training, I was really, really taken aback by the effects of trauma on our bodies. Now, trauma can be, I initially used to think trauma as being this really big thing. It had to be a major thing to be considered trauma. That's not true. We've all experienced trauma. We've all experienced the loss of someone we love. We've all experienced something that we may have seen that may have been traumatic. Maybe just watching the news can be traumatic and can have some effects on us. So I don't want you to feel like, well, I've never experienced trauma. And if you haven't, then I'm of course, I don't want anybody to experience trauma. But trauma for some doesn't always have to be a major, like going to war or something like that. We've all experienced some form of trauma in our life or loss. And when we don't deal with that, again, like I said, it holds itself into our body. Now we'll talk a little bit about the connection to the nervous system. Now, then let me just review quickly the nervous system, not in too much detail, because I can go on a little bit about it, but I won't. The central nervous system is the CNS. You see that probably abbreviated there. And we've got the peripheral nervous system and the somatic nervous system, and the autonomic nervous system. Now we're going to be talking a bit more about the autonomic nervous system as it regulates our fight or flight response. So you'll be hearing me talk about sympathetic and parasympathetic systems in the upcoming slides, and we're going to be focusing a little bit more on that because of its relationship with the Psoas. So we've got here a little diagram of the nervous system from the brain all the way down, and so you'll see different areas of the nervous system, how they affect, how they affect our bodies. The nervous system, the parasympathetic system mobilizes the body when there is a threat and activates the fight or flight reaction. So it is really the parasympathetic system that helps to protect us, right? It's really a protective part of our nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest. It is the one that says, okay, everything's good. We are in a good space. We are safe. Let's relax. So it helps with digestion. It really helps to maintain and promote energy conservation and regulates the body. The Psoas and the nervous system. So this is what I was telling you earlier about its connection to the innervation near the lumbar area. Its connection lays deep and is met with a myriad of nerves that run through it. So you can see all of that innervation in that space, exactly where the Psoas runs. The aorta runs along the same path as the Psoas. Therefore, any circulations or body rhythms can affect the Psoas. So if your blood pressure is low or high, it will affect the Psoas. The psoas also works together with the diaphragm at the junction point of the solar plexus. In the solar plexus area is kind of in that center part of your body, near the kind of a little bit above the base of the ribs. When we experience a traumatic event, our parasympathetic system kicks in, and likely our breathing will change. These actions will cause the psoas to tighten and contract as a means of protection, inciting that fight or flight response. What is the first thing we're told to do when we're in a difficult situation? Is breathe. Breathe calmly. Calm yourself down. And when you're experiencing a traumatic event, your breathing is going to start to fluctuate, and it will incite that fight or flight reaction with your psoas. And it's only when the sympathetic system kicks in that things can start to feel safe again. So you can imagine that people who experience PTSD are in a constant state of a parasympathetic, they're in a constant parasympathetic state. They're in this fight or flight reaction, and they can't connect necessarily within their sympathetic system, is unable to tell the body that it's safe, the mind it's safe. So it's quite a traumatic place to be in if you've experienced PTSD. So trauma, emotional disorders, and the Psoas. Somatic memory is an internal memory your body holds to traumatic events that you've experienced. Studies have shown that not only do we hold traumatic events in our brain, we also hold them in our bodies. A wonderful book that I read is called The Body Reads the Mind. I think I'm saying that wrong. The body, I'm going to say, I'll tell you, it'll click in. The body is a reflection of the mind, and effectively, you know, whatever is going on in our mind will be stored in different areas of our body. The Body Speaks the Mind. Sorry, that's the book. And that is a wonderful book and resource. It literally goes through the body and talks about different things that could be affecting different areas of our body and how its relationship to our mind and experiences that we've had. Because the Psoas location is an intricate connection to the diaphragm and extensive bundles of nerves that pass through the Psoas. Often when trauma occurs, the trauma can be held in the Psoas, causing pain and tightness. Releasing the Psoas can play an important role in the healing process. And we'll talk a little bit about this technique that we're going to be doing shortly. Forms of trauma and emotional disorders. Linda Sparrow wrote an article called Transcending Trauma, How Yoga Heals. And she wrote, while we often think of PTSD as the intense and unexplained symptoms military men and women experience coming home from battle, this anxiety disorder can take on many forms and touch a much wider population. Experiencing sexual assault, getting hit by a car, witnessing a violent crime, being in a war zone, losing your best friend to a disease, or even being scared of the possibility of something bad happening can all contribute to PTSD. You know, how you deal with and how you feel in the aftermath of such events determines the level of trauma that gets lodged in your body and in your cells. So if you haven't had that release, like I talked to you about earlier, about stress, something that if you haven't been able to release it completely, it will get stored in your body and it will get stored in the Psoas. In the book, The Vital Psoas Muscle, which was an incredibly informational resource for me, they wrote that the fight or flight reaction is a response to the sympathetic nervous system. The relaxation response for rest and recovery is through the parasympathetic system. When one experiences an overpowering stress, this healthy response may be subdued. So if we cannot calm our bodies down, it won't be able to relax. It won't be able to let it go, because if we still feel in that heightened space. And different, you know, things that can be as a result can be, you know, experiencing PTSD, sexual abuse. These are different forms of trauma that we can experience. Acute stress disorder, addictions, depression, phobias, panic attacks, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, sleep issues, and nightmares. How does yoga play into this? Well, yoga, of course, the goal of yoga is to calm the body down and to relax and to connect in with our body. When I began my process of going into my yoga journey about 6 years ago, when I did this course, this warrior trainings course, I really connected with the impact that yoga can really help with releasing past traumas and just dealing with overall anxiety and stress. My mom, and I told you I was going to talk to you a little bit about it earlier. My mom suffered, an extremely difficult upbringing and experienced sexual trauma as a young woman, and as a result, had suffered from addiction issues and mental health issues for pretty much my whole life. And it wasn't until I connected in with this program, in with the Warriors program, this course that I took, that I could really connect and understand my mom. And I didn't understand her. Well, yeah, I understood her, but not in the way of how trauma impacts our body and our lives. And it was a very powerful moment for me in my life, because it was also a means of understanding some of the trauma that I had experienced growing up, and some of the things I had seen that I hadn't necessarily released either. And it was really, truly through my yoga practice and through the courses that I've taken that I've been able to deal with some of this over the years. And we've all experienced something that may have been traumatic, and we might not have known how to deal with it. It might not it may help to explain some things that we do and some reactions that we have, and it kind of brings things into perspective, and how important us dealing with our issues or past issues, it can really help to liberate us and to really free us of this tension we may be holding, or any kind of emotional things we might be holding inside. So in yoga, we have the chakra system, and because of the location of this particular muscle, it does particularly connect in with about 3 of the chakras in the 7 chakra model. And the first one is Muladhara. If you did my 7-week yoga chakra program journey, you'll remember Muladhara as being the grounding chakra. And the grounding chakra is located at the base of the spine. And it's really that one that we connect down to the earth. It is one that creates this idea of foundation of grounding, survival, and of stability. So you can imagine, because of its location, the Muladhara chakra, because of its location to the psoas, when our grounding or our foundation is not stable, that could be because of stress, that could be because of something happening in our lives, a traumatic event, maybe, I mean, there's so many things that can throw our foundation off, right? Think of it as a house. If a house is not built on a firm foundation, the rest of the house is not going to be able to build up and be strong. But if your foundation is built on a solid foundation, you can work from that and build on that. So of course, if you've experienced a traumatic event, your foundation can be affected by that. And it can make you feel unsafe. It can make you feel, if you've got concerns of your survival, this year being what it was, there's a lot of people whose foundation has been rocked. They've potentially lost their jobs, financial insecurity, food instability, food insecurity, housing insecurity. So there's a lot that are affecting people's grounding, their sense of safety. So the first chakra is Muladhara, and its demon is fear. So you can imagine when you're feeling fright or fear, that it affects your grounding. And people who suffer from PTSD suffer from this feeling of not feeling safe. So that's really where we go. Svadhisthana is the second chakra, and it's the sacral chakra, and it's located again near the belly button. It's right maybe around the belly button area. And its orientation is one's own place, and this right to feel. In people who suffer from trauma, they are often trying to avoid going back to that place because it's so traumatic. And sometimes that's the hard part, is people who suffer from PTSD, they are feeling unable to bring themselves back to that space because it incites so much fear and trauma in them. And so they're not connecting, we're not able to connect to the feeling that we're having in the body. We try to push that aside. And it's actually through this connection of feeling that we can really begin the healing process. And you'll be the Psoas Release technique is really to incite that physical reaction to be able to release that stress. And we'll talk about that shortly. Manipura is the last chakra that I would say really kind of connects to the psoas. It is a little higher. It's that solar plexus. You may have heard that maybe even in like anatomy courses or anatomy books, that they call this the solar plexus. I should state that the chakra system is a subtle energy system, a subtle body energy system. It is not a tangible thing. So it's not like you're going to see your Muladhara. Yes, there's connections to certain areas of the body, but it is really a subtle energy system. When you connect to your subtle energy system, you can really feel its effects in your body when you connect in through the chakra system. And each of these chakras, each of the 7 chakras on the model, each relate to a different part of the body and to physical connections if your chakra is imbalanced. So in Manipura, we've got, it relates to power, self-esteem, strength, confidence, and self-worth, right? So we're trying to really incite, when we have a balanced Manipura, we feel that sense of self-power, self-esteem, confidence, and strength. Moving on to the benefits of yoga to stress and trauma. The Harvard Healthy Publishing, Harvard Healthy published an article about how yoga can help with depression and anxiety. It's a natural anxiety relief. A wide range of yoga practices can help to help regulate exaggerated stress responses. So we find a way of coping with stress in a different way, and yoga is really a wonderful practice to help with the coping of stress. It doesn't say you're not going to have stress or experience stress, but it's really how we relate to that stress that we're really looking to use and help help kind of utilize our yoga practice to help with that. And it can be helpful for both anxiety and depression. Yoga functions like other self-soothing techniques such as meditation, relaxation, exercise, or even socializing with friends. And by reducing the perceived stress and anxiety, yoga appears to modulate stress response systems. This in turn decreases the physiological arousal, for example, reducing the heart rate, lowering blood pressure, decreases and eases respiration, so it allows you to be calmer. And there's also evidence that yoga practice helps to increase the heart rate variability, an indicator of the body's ability to respond to stress more flexibly. So we have a heart rate response when we're in a stressful environment. It allows to try to relax that heart rate variability. Yoga is helpful to help with this woman by the name of Vandervalk. She's a director of the Trauma Center, and she wrote that it helps to reduce our reaction to minor stresses on every level of our being, both physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, and can be a real powerful means for trauma victims to re-inhabitate and connect in with their bodies and calm their minds, experience emotions directly, and begin to feel a sense of strength and control, which people who have suffered trauma don't always feel like they have control. So we have this wonderful gentleman by the name of David Berceli, and he wrote this book, Trauma Releasing Exercises, which is where I got the Psoas Release technique from. And he developed a system of, he was in Africa, and he went into a community. He went there for a conference, and during his stay there, there was a lot of people who were approaching him and saying, well, he was there for trauma, and a lot of people were approaching him and saying, I'm doing my talk therapy, which is great. I'm doing it once or twice a week. But what happens when I go home? Like, I go to my my therapist. He or she gives me some really great advice. We talk it out. And now for the remainder of the 7 days of the week, I am on my own in my home trying to live my daily life when I've got this trauma instilled in me. And so he came up with this idea of how can we help support people on a global scale. So, you know, not all resources, not everybody has the resources to go to talk therapy. And talk therapy is a very, very wonderful process to deal with healing and trauma. But he wanted to find a way that he could invite a self-healing practice that people can do on their own and at home without the need of a professional therapist. So he went on a way of trying to figure out what to do. And he believes that until we physically let go of the trauma, that trauma will remain in our bodies. And he got this kind of idea, I think, partly from the animal species. And I'm going to read you a little bit about this from his book. He says, animal species that are still living in their natural habitats often encounter trauma. They, however, unlike humans, still have not deadened or repressed their natural ability to discharge the excess energy generated during trauma. Animals still allow their bodies to shake out the tension of a traumatic experience and then move on unencumbered with their lives. So they shake it off and they move on. If a gazelle gets attacked by a lion, but manages to escape, when the gazelle is safe, its entire body will tremble until it has shaken out the excess charge and will return back to the herd drinking water from the pond as though nothing had happened. Even though our pets are more domesticated and now live in artificial or constructed environments, we can still see the same type of trembling if they are afraid of thunder and lightning. They will often come close to us and tremble. This trembling is the natural process of the body discharging excess energy simultaneously as is being created in the body. As humans, we possess the same mechanism. However, to our detriment, we have inhibited or deadened it. As an example, when we get nervous or overexcited, we deliberately try not to shake so as not to appear weak or afraid. This ego control places the body and mind into a conflict. The body wants to shake to discharge the excess energy, but the mind refuses to let it do so. The mind usually wins, and the body must then find another way of dealing with this hyper-aroused charge. The way it deals with it is by contracting the muscle and containing this extra charge. The muscles in the body contract and hold on to the excess charge until they are allowed to release it at a later time. If they do not get the opportunity, the contracted muscles then produce a chronic state of tension in the body. Herein lays one of the root causes of PTSD. If the muscles contracted during trauma do not release the high charge shortly after the trauma, they will continue to try to do so at a later date as if restoring the body to a restful state. That is, to me, just amazing. And it is really the premise behind the Psoas shake is to be able to contract that muscle. And you will experience this yourself today. To be able to truly allow the body to release, to let go, to surrender to whatever stresses you may be experiencing, whether it's a traumatic experience. Now, I'm not telling you, and I'm not going to tell you today, you're going to do this once and you're going to feel great, right? No, it's not. It's a process, but it is a beginning physical process to connect in with yourself, that if you are feeling stressed, this is one means in our toolbox to help us release and surrender to I shouldn't say surrender, connect to ourselves, to be able to dive a little deeper and begin the healing process. Now, a little lighter, ways in which we can keep our Psoas happy. I think this is our last one. Of course, have a regular yoga practice. If you're not familiar with yoga, if you haven't done it, it is a wonderful way to begin to really connect into the body and into the mind. So we come to yoga often for the physical connection. And as you go through the yogic process, you start to unravel the koshas. The koshas are those sheaths of layers that we start to peel off when we work from the external body out inward. So yoga is a wonderful way to start connecting with your body. Practice meditation. I have become, I'm not going to say I've always been, because that's a lie. I have become a very dedicated meditator. It has changed my life. It has changed my life in my reactions to things. It has changed my connection to myself, the forgiveness towards myself. It has been an incredible healing journey. And I'm not telling you I do it for an hour a day. I do it for 15 minutes a day. You can start with 2 minutes. You can start with 1 minute. But it is a wonderful way to start checking in with yourself and really connect with your body and mind. Pranayama. Pranayama is a breath practice, so we often include that in yoga. So maybe just practicing breathing in and out, allowing your body to calm down. Take time to de-stress. Take a bath, relax, go for a walk, do something that allows you to separate from the stress of your day. It is so important. I know that we all work so hard, and it is so, and put self-care at the side, right? We've got kids at home, we've got things going on, time for self-care. What? No, I'm not going to do that. But it is absolutely essential that we make self-care as part of our daily routine. Whatever it is that gives you joy, whatever it is that allows you to quiet your mind, take that time for yourself. You deserve it, you are worthy of it, and you need it. It's important to your health and well-being. Vary your workouts. If you're someone who does the same type of workouts every day, if you're a runner, maybe you want to cross-train and do something else to release the psoas and allow a little bit of diversification in your workouts. From a physical standpoint, we know repetitive movements will eventually cause overuse injuries and will potentially cause injuries in the psoas, because we know we use that muscle all the time. Take regular breaks from sitting. If you're at work, take every hour, 15 minutes, not 15 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, couple of minutes, and do some stretches side to side. Try to stretch out your body, try to sit up tall. Notice how if you're slouching. My mom, God bless her, would always tell me, stop slouching, stop slouching. What am I doing as a mom now? I'm telling my kids, stop slouching, because I know it affects so much of the body, right? So let's try to think about sitting up tall, growing taller, give ourselves an inch or two in length, and really try to keep that pelvis nice and neutral. And release stress regularly. Practice self-forgiveness. If you're having a stressful day, if you're having stressful thoughts, if you're feeling overwhelmed, give yourself that self-forgiveness. Give yourself some time for yourself, and to forgive any stresses or thoughts you may be feeling that are not serving you. And this is my big thing of the last couple of weeks. We have 70 to 90,000 thoughts a day, and 80% of them tend to be negative. When I read that statistic, I was absolutely dumbfounded. But take some time to relax your mind and to say some positive words to yourself, because you deserve it. That is the end of the ins and outs of our practice, of our workshop for the theoretical part of today. I think we'll take 3 minutes to get ourselves settled, and we're going to begin today lying down on our backs. So I want you to go ahead, you need to go to the bathroom, you need to grab a cup of tea or a glass of water. Go ahead and do that. And we are going to start right into our asana practice. And so go ahead and get whatever it is you need. And we're going to get right into it. I'm going to take a little sip of my tea. And okay. All right. So as I said earlier, we are going to probably be using the blocks. If you don't have blocks, that's okay. If you have a pillow, that's also fine. So don't feel like if you don't have yoga blocks that it's going to be a big deal. It's not. It's a nice tool to have, but it's not necessary to have. I often have used books in the past if I'm not with my equipment near me. So if you do have a thick book, that would also be fine. Maybe a couple of books, just be careful if it's a little unstable. All right, I'm gonna stop talking and give everybody a minute so they don't feel like they're missing anything. If anybody has any questions I can quickly answer, go ahead and ask them. If not, feel free to just take a moment to quiet your mind. Okay. All right. So as I said, today we are going to go through an asana practice, so our physical practice. And if you have blocks or a pillow or a blanket, make sure you've got everything you need to be comfortable, especially for the last part of the class. We are going to be doing the Psoas shake at the end of the class. It will be 6 minutes long. And then from there, we're going to go directly into Shavasana. I'm going to say this now so I don't have to say it later because I don't want you to, I want you to really find that comfortable spot. But please, 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 after we finish the Psoas shake, just stay where you are. Please don't get up quickly. If it becomes too intense at any part of your, during the process of the Psoas shake, if it feels like, no, this is a no-go place for me, then I want you to stop. Okay, I want you to honor your body today and just maybe extend your legs or go into constructive rest pose. It is really important that you listen and check in with yourself, especially during the Psoas shake technique. It may and has at times brought up an emotional release. Don't hold back. If it does happen, it's okay. Please, it's part of the process, and it can happen it happened to me this week in my car. I was listening to a song, and again, I went back to my parents, and my something clicked, and I just had an emotional release. So sometimes emotional releases can just happen. So please don't worry about it. It is important that we let that go, and that is really the essence of what we're doing today. So I'm going to begin by reading a little blurb about surrender. So I just want you to begin lying down on your back, find that comfortable spot, and we're going to start in constructive rest pose, and I'll meet you there shortly. In constructive rest pose, you want your legs to be about as wide as your mat and your knees knocked together. So just find that nice comfortable spot, let your hands rest at the side and just relax your shoulders and just begin to take a few breaths in and out through the nose. And perhaps just for today, I would like us to have the mantra of I am open and willing to surrender. And I just want you to take this mantra, I am open and willing to surrender, as that mantra of inviting your openness to whatever is, whatever comes up, without judgment, without expectation, without any sort of attachment to it. But we're just open to receiving whatever it is we receive. So take a few moments now and just breathe in and out that mantra. Just allow that mantra, I am open to receiving and surrendering. Surrender is a most beautiful word. It is powerful and nurturing, healing us as it provides both strength and compassion. As we understand the essence and meaning of the word surrender through our hearts, we begin to transform. As we transform internally, the external world changes. As within, so without. How to surrender is many faceted. The word itself has two parts. First, we begin to release what is held by the mind, body, and spirit. The release can be facilitated through focus and breath. Along with this focus, the breath is brought to the forefront, using the breath as a guide in scanning the physical sensations, mental thoughts, and emotional feelings. With the release of an acceptance of what is, happening is important. When we release and accept and embrace life in any moment, we are surrendering. It leaves us open to the moment, to being completely present. With continuous practice of surrendering, we build the ability to heal. As we heal, the space that opens up is filled with joy. Surrender, heal, and be in joy. As you find yourself lying down in constructive rest pose, let us begin to first notice the grounding beneath us. Notice the earth. Notice its support of us in all moments of life. Take a big inhale in through the nose to the belly as if you are reaching down into your belly, into the psoas. And as you exhale, sigh out, releasing the breath and allowing your body to melt in towards the earth. Breathe in and release out. Soften your shoulders a little more. Breathe in and breathe out. Let us slowly begin to toe heel our feet so that they are directly underneath, our heels are directly underneath the knees. And we're going to keep our right foot connected down to the earth as we begin with our left leg, extending it out long. So begin to slide your left foot out, keeping the heel down to the ground. And then slide the heel back in towards center. And slide the left foot. So you're kind of gliding that heel along your mat. And then slowly gliding the foot back in through center. And then one more time, slide it out. So now I'd like you to take your left leg and extend it out as long as you can. The toes are reaching up towards the sky. The heel is down and towards the earth. And I'd like you to open your left foot out so that you're externally rotating it, so that your left foot, the outer arch of your foot, is down and towards the ground. And then from this space, start to slide your heel in towards center. Your left knee is going to be open. And then bring that left foot in towards center. We're doing our hip release here. So slide your left foot out long. Turn your left foot towards the left side. And then slide the outer edges of the foot towards center. And let's do that 2 more times. So lengthen, reach the heel long. Open up the heel, let the arch of the outer edge of the left foot glide towards center and come back in through. And I just want you to draw your awareness to your hips here. So slide your left foot out last time. Open out your foot out to the left and then slide it back forward. It's a wonderful way to release the hip flexors. And then come back in through center. Now we're going to reverse that direction. We're going to open up that left leg. Bring that left foot on the outer edge. Slide the foot out long. And then bring the heel back in through center, toes to the sky, and then slide the foot back in. Open up the left foot, outer edge, reach the foot long, sliding the outer foot, and then bringing that left foot in, put the foot heel in towards the ground, toes to the sky, and slide it back in. We're going to do 3 more like that. Open up to the outer edge. Now you want to just notice your right hip here. We want to keep that nice and grounded towards the earth. So there's no rotation through the pelvis. So we're just focusing here on the left hip. Open and slide and just work at your own pace. And as you're doing so, keeping that breath nice and fluid. Sliding it back in. Try to find a bit of release through the low back. Last one. Take that left foot out, glide it forward. Bring the toes up to the sky. Put a little pressure into the heel as you glide your left foot towards center. Wonderful. And go ahead and just take a moment here, releasing, maybe knocking your knees together for a moment. And then go ahead and we're going to bring our feet back and we're going to do that right side. So let's just begin to slide the right foot forward. We'll just slide it back into the center. We'll just do a few like that, just to get that sensation. Might feel different on one side than the other. Now, if you've worked with me, you've probably heard me say, oh gosh, this feels different than one side than the other. And it's very possible that one side will feel different, may elicit a different sensation in the body and a different emotional reaction, may just physically feel different than one side than the other side. And then bring that foot, whenever you're ready, back in towards center. And as you're ready, we're going to slide that right foot out long. And this time externally rotate the right foot to the outer edge of the foot. And then slide the foot open. And then bring the foot flat back onto the floor. So slide the right foot out. Externally rotate it. Glide the outer edge of the right foot, keeping that right hip open as far as you can go. And then bringing the knee back up. We're going to do 3 more like that. Slide it out. Open up. And it should feel really gentle. We're not trying to go too fast. We're really trying to connect into our body here. So again, coming back to that physical practice, bringing that awareness to the physical body. Good, and last one, just slide it out. Externally rotate, then slide the outer edge of the foot back in towards center. Wonderful. Good, and let's go ahead and we'll do the reverse now. So opening up the right foot, sliding the outer edge of the foot out and long till you can't go any further, and then bring that foot to center, toes to the sky, slide the heel back in towards center. Open up, slide it out, and back in through center. I'm putting a little bit of pressure in towards my heel, kind of loosening up and allowing the hip to release here. Wonderful. Let's finish up with one last one. And then right back in through center. Wonderful. Take your feet about as wide as your mat whenever you're ready, back in towards center, and let your knees just knock together, back in constructive rest pose. So I talked earlier today about constructive rest pose as being your friend. If you've got a tight psoas or you're feeling like your hips are tight, this would be your first go-to, hopefully, before you move into other stretches. Wonderful. And then go ahead and toe heel your feet back in through center. And now we're going to go into some gentle lower and lifts. So go ahead and bring your left knee in towards your chest. You can interlace your fingers right at the front of the shin or behind the thigh, whatever feels right for you. Again, we're coming to this with some real kindness, so no forcing of the upper body. Try to keep your upper body nice and soft. Extending your right leg, I've got my right leg lengthened out and just hovering over the ground here. And this is a nice strengthening exercise for the psoas. So we're going to slowly bring the right foot down about an inch toward, right above the ground, and then just lift and lower. I'm going to do about 10 of those. And I want you to draw that awareness of that lift and lower coming right from the hip flexor here. If it feels too intense, then just stop and go back into constructive rest pose. Again, we're honoring our body, just watching for that low back. So if you feel like you're muscling through this, there's no need to do that. So just honor that and maybe take a break, or maybe do a couple and then take a break. Good. I've lost count, so we'll do another 2 more. Great. I can feel that right away, that strengthening in there, that work that's happening. And then go ahead and we'll extend that left leg out, bring that right knee in towards the chest and extend the left leg. I've got my foot about 1 inch off the floor, then I'm going to lift it about 1 inch and then lower about 1 inch. So again, coming from that hip flexor complex, just bringing that awareness to that place on the hip that's really eliciting this lifting and lowering. Just connect with your breath. If you notice your breath is starting to, maybe you're holding your breath a little bit, maybe there's no, you're kind of losing a bit of fluidity, just bring that attention back to your breath. Maybe recite your mantra of I am open to receiving and surrendering. Good, and let's do one last one. Wonderful, and let's go ahead and bring both knees in towards our chest. Draw the knees in towards the heart, lengthen the low back. Maybe give yourself a little hug, maybe rock your body side to side. Feeling very loving towards yourself. Beautiful. Now, whenever you're ready, come back in through center. We're going to go ahead and place our feet down onto the ground. Now, if you have one, if you do have a yoga block, go ahead and grab it. If you don't, it's not a big deal. So let's just bring our yoga block nearby so we have it in our toolbox to grab shortly. We're going to be moving into some flowing bridges. Now, I'm going to encourage you, if going into bridges does not feel comfortable for you, you can go just simply into a supported bridge by raising or placing your sacrum on a block or a pillow and just rest here. So if that feels more comfortable for you, please do that as an alternative option. So bridges, I'd like you to bring your feet kind of underneath your knees, again, like we had before. Hands pressing down onto the side. So put a little bit of pressure into the hands here. And I want you to energize through your feet and your glutes. And as you start to energize here, opening up the front body. And you'll notice right away, it just invites that opening through the hips. And then go ahead and slowly bring your sacrum down. So continue here. We're going to do about 5 flowing bridges and just open up. When you come up into your bridge, you're really engaged through the glutes here. And it's also important as we think about the psoas, that we think about the back side of the body. If we don't have strong glutes, then that's going to elicit more of that tightening into the hip flexors because they're going to want to help out. So we want to also maintain really nice, strong gluteal area so that we can find that balance between the front and back of our body. Good. This is also a wonderful opener of the body. You've heard me say this, so I'm sorry if I've repeated, but bridges are one of my favorites. I feel really like I can open up my space here. I can really invite a release, if you will. A little bit of vulnerability too. I find that sometimes we have to just let ourselves be in that space. If it feels safe and comfortable. This one, for me, for some reason, emotionally, I really feel this opportunity to let myself open up here. Wonderful. Now, when you're ready, we'll come back down towards the ground. If you have your yoga block, you can grab it and you can place it in your hands. And I've got it kind of placed on the outer edges of my hands here. And as we're going to go into our flowing bridges, but this time we're going to extend our arms open behind us. So opening up, and this is really going to open up a little bit more through the hip flexor complex. If you don't have a block, you can still do this, so don't worry about it. And then come back down. Good. And just go ahead and continue to flow at your own pace. We'll do maybe about 5 or 6 of these. So as we reach with our arms up overhead, we're lengthening. We're finding that opening even further through the hip flexor complex. And if you don't have a block, I just like the block as it's a kind of a tangible thing. It allows me to have this physical connection. So it really invites this awareness again to the physical body, which is what we're trying to do. We're trying to connect in and check in with ourselves, see how we're feeling. Good. And last one. Beautiful. And then whenever you're ready, go ahead and release down. Great. Now, if you have a block, you'll continue to hold on to the block. If you don't worry. Go ahead and extend your arms up overhead. Now, if you've got shoulder issues and this does not feel good, place your hands just at your side, or maybe extend your arm out if that feels okay. And you can shift your weight over a little bit to the left. We're just gonna do a little opening up of the side body. So if you do have a block, you could go ahead and go into a gentle lateral flexion. So we're gonna bring that block over towards the left side. And try not to go again too heavy, too hard. So if you're going really forcing it, I want you to just invite this gentle lateral movement here. And it's just to invite a little opening here. Now from here, go ahead and extend your legs. You may even feel a little bit more of that opening in the psoas. Again, if it doesn't feel comfortable to have your arms up overhead, you can just kind of shimmy your upper body a little bit over to the left. Wonderful. And then come back in through center. So I'm going to go ahead and bend my knees back in, and then I'm going to take my block and I'm going to go over to the right side of the mat and just opening up that side body, opening up a little bit of the hip, and then coming down. So extend the legs if it feels comfortable. For some, if you're having low back issues, lengthening your legs might not feel great. So then I would encourage you to bend your knees. Okay, wonderful. And come right back in through center. If you've got your yoga block, go ahead and keep it in your hands and bend your knees. Now from here, we're going to go into a supported bridge. So I talked about that shortly before. If you're still there, great. You're going to be with us. We're going to all be together. But go ahead and press your sacrum off the ground. And if you don't have a yoga block, don't worry about it. You can take a pillow. You can have nothing. So don't worry about it at all. We're going to go ahead and bring our right knee in towards our chest and extend our left leg long. So this is going to really allow us to open up through the hip flexor, just kind of lengthen out from rib cage all the way down. And try to take a few nice breaths here and release that right knee in towards your heart. This feels really, for me, this feels great on my back. For some, this might not. If you have a block and the block feels hard, a bolster would be an alternative, a wonderful alternative. And then when you're ready, go ahead and we'll switch sides. So extend the right leg long. And I want you to take your breath here and breathe into this space. Surrender into any tension you might be having here. So just let it go. Now, if you're ready, you can either go back to your right leg, or if you want to, you can extend both legs. Now, this can feel a little bit more intense. I want you just to honor what feels good for you. You can do, again, go back to one side. And we're just going to take a few breaths here. So try to soften through the legs. Soften your breath. One of the most things that I notice about my body is, even though like I think I'm relaxed, there's still a little bit of that muscle tension that's holding on. There's still something that my body is still holding on to. So just recognize that maybe there's an opportunity to let go a little bit. Think of it as an ice cube on a hot day, which is one of my favorite analogies, because when you see an ice cube on the earth, or on the hot surface, it starts to slowly melt down. Let your body be that ice cube. Let it just kind of gently melt down. Let go of anything you might be holding on to physically. And then whenever you're ready, if you are in this full extension, go ahead and bring your knees back in through center and place your feet just down on the ground. And we're going to energize through our feet and our glutes to lift our sacrum off the ground and then shift that block off towards the side. Beautiful. Excellent. And let's go ahead and let's come into all fours. So we're going to roll onto our favorite side. And we're going to move into some cat-cow with my bed head here. Don't worry about it. All right. So lying down on, coming into all fours, we're going to find ourselves with our knees underneath our hips and our hands underneath our shoulders. So it's important here to just find if you've got any sort of knee issues or wrist issues. If you have wrist issues, you can go into fist or wrist. That's a really wonderful way to release any tension from the wrist. If you have knee issues, feel free to roll your mat or place a blanket underneath the knees. So hands are going to starfish, so nice and wide. And I want you to open up with some good energy through the hands. So extend them as long as you can. And we're just really inviting this idea of Muladhara, our grounding chakra, so connecting down into the earth. Feet are flat. If that feels good, you can curl your toes if that feels better. Pressing into the floor, let's begin to invite our inhale and letting our back arch, opening up the heart. And then as we exhale, pull the belly around the spine. Maybe you're allowing yourself to recite your mantra. I am open to receiving and to surrendering. And allowing our breath to be our guide here. So breathing in through the nose and breathing out of the nose. Wonderful. And as we come to this as a gentle yoga practice, so thinking about how we started our conversation today about not forcing the body. I was having a conversation with a mom last night at my daughter's basketball game, and a lovely, lovely mom. And we talked, I don't know how it came up, but she mentioned that she had injured herself and she was working out and she's very competitive. And because of her competitiveness, she ultimately injured herself, which is now taking her out of doing the activities that she likes. And I can see that, right? We've all been there. But when we want to think about self-care, we want to think about doing things that nourish us and take care of us. And that also means being gentle with our bodies. So honoring where we meet our bodies on the mat. Where are we today? May be different than it was yesterday and maybe different than we are tomorrow. And going to it with love and care and non-judgment. And when I was talking to this mom, you could hear her self-judgment in her voice, that she felt bad, that she wasn't able to do what she wants to do. And I felt for her. Good, and let's finish with one last one. And come right back in through center. Wonderful. Now let's go ahead and let's find our child's pose. And we talked about that earlier. It's in your handout that I'll be sending you. This is a wonderful hip opener. So big toes come together, knees are wide, press your hips back. Now, if coming down into extended child's pose doesn't feel accessible to you today, you can always raise the floor by bringing a block underneath your elbows. This is a wonderful way to find this pose and really allow your hips to release here. If you want to get a little bit of a back stretch, you can go ahead and extend your arms or rest your hands out at the side here with your forehead resting on your palms or the tops of your hands, sorry. And go ahead and take a few nice big breaths. And I want you to draw your breath down to your hips and to your low back. see if as you breathe out, you can release any tension that you might be holding on there. Just connecting into that physical body. Just see if you can let go. Just take 2 more breaths here. And with each of the exhales, release the exhales and feel free to do it as a big, like, sigh out, like that releasing breath, like, just letting it all go. Wonderful. And then when you're ready, let's come back to all fours. Great. And then we're going to come into our lower end lifts from this perspective. And that's really just strengthening the glutes. So like I said, we want to find that balance. So let's go ahead and bring our hands underneath our shoulders and extend our right leg long. And you want to do this with a lot of awareness of your core. So you've got your belly button drawn in and your back is nice and long. Your head is slightly pulled up, so your gaze is down, but your head is not jutting forward. So again, we're thinking about that spinal health as well. So go ahead and flex in through your right foot. And as you extend your leg, I want you to lift up, but I want you to engage that glute right from that crease space of the glute here, and then lower back down and lift. So finding that crease and then lowering. So imagine you're being pulled up from that crease and you're lifting your leg from here. And as you do so, keeping that pelvic area nice and neutral. So trying not to tilt into the low back, but just keeping the spine nice and long. The abs are engaged. This is really going to turn on your glute maximus. And we want to always think about the strengthening of the glutes when we think about our psoas, because they are directly in opposition to each other and they work together synergistically. Good. Let's do 2 more like that. Good. I think this is probably 3. So sorry. And then go ahead and bend your right knee and come back in through center. Let's go ahead and do the other side. Left leg extends, flex it through the feet. So I want you to really energize through that back foot. That's going to turn on the back of the body, and then go ahead and lift and lower. Toes are going to rest down towards the floor. Think about pulling in from that crease, right where that leg and the glute connect. So that's where we're really focusing on this lower end lift, really engaging through that space. It's a very targeted exercise, so you're going to probably feel this just through the glute, maybe a little bit in different areas of the body, but certainly targeted towards that glute maximus. Wonderful. Let's do 2 more. Wonderful. And go ahead, whenever you're ready, bend into your knees. And go ahead and come onto your heels whenever you're ready. And we're going to go into our kneeling lunge next. So if you have some knee issues, remember you can always put a blanket underneath your knees, because putting the weight on the kneecap can feel a little bit uncomfortable. If this doesn't work for you at all and you want to do this in a standing position, that is always possible. It's up to you. So I'm going to come down into the kneeling position. And this is one of those stretches when I was telling you earlier where we kind of go into it pretty intensely. This is the one I was referring to, that when oftentimes our hips are tight, we're like, all right, I need to stretch it out. We just jump into it right away. Well, we don't want to do that because that's just too intense on the hip flexor complex. So you want to be able to bring that front knee right above the ankle, and you want to be able to extend that back leg. So if you've got kneecap issues, try to shift your foot back a little bit further, so a little bit more of the weight is on the quad and less on the patella. And the right foot is going to be right under, the knee is going to be right underneath the ankle, and that's really important first to start with. If you've got blocks, you can place your blocks at the side. So these are a wonderful tool. And again, I want you to think about melting down here without jutting down too deeply. You want to come to this with a lot of softness and breathe into it. So just find that space where you can just slowly release down, let your muscles do their thing. If you've got the blocks, wonderful. If you don't have blocks and sitting up tall doesn't feel good, go ahead and place your hands on either side of your right foot. That's always an alternative option. And you want to just see that that front knee is tracking nicely as well. So again, we're always thinking about the body as a whole. It's not just one body part. One body part affects others. So when you're looking down at your right knee, try to make sure it's right tracking with the two big toes. Now from here, we're going to go into a psoas opener, psoas stretch. So take the left arm. I'm going to keep my right hand right on my block. Take your left arm and reach it out right on top of you. And then from here, I want you to tilt your upper body over towards the right side. So let me just come facing the camera here. So knee is tracking on top of the ankle. Left arm is extended. You've opened up this whole space here. And now we're going to lean over. This will directly open up the psoas and stretch it out. Wonderful. And then make your way back in through center. So you'll notice that when I was there, what you want to avoid is this shifting of space. So we're not kicking our hips open, we're keeping our hips stuck in space and then lengthening from that space and leaning over towards the right side. Great job. Let's go ahead and bring our right foot back and we'll take our left foot forward this time. I can feel that right through my hips right now. So go ahead and find that space, shift your weight forward. And again, bring awareness to your solar plexus area, your Muladhara chakra, and just bring that awareness to your low back, breathing into it, opening up, thinking about this really beautiful release and letting go. Again, if the blocks, you don't have them and you don't want to have, you can always rest your hands down on either side of your left foot. Whatever feels right for you. Sitting up tall. And again, if you are doing this standing, that's absolutely perfect as well. It might be a little bit heavier, but you can always do it standing as well. And I know for a lot of us, if you're a runner, you're probably doing a lot of these type of stretches. So absolutely. And even doing them kneeling as well. Good. And then from here, let's go ahead and raise our hands, bringing them onto our knee and extend our right arm long. You want to find that lift through the right arm and then gently open up. Oh, I can feel that right opening. You can even take that block on the left and just rest your hand on the left block. Opening up the hips. Take a couple of breaths here and release. Wonderful. And then go ahead and come back in through center. Fantastic. Well done. All right, let's bring our left foot back and we're going to come onto our, we're going to come into child's pose one more time and then we're going to come back onto our backs. So knees are going to be wide, big toes together, press back. And if you can, if your arms feel comfortable to extend out, go ahead and do that. But we're just going to, if not, you can rest your hands just on your knees and walk your hands over towards the left side. So just take a breath or two here to release the hips down. Arms are going to extend if that's available. And then you can walk your hands over towards the left side. And opening up of the side of the back. So if you've got low back issues, we want to also be able to stretch the low back because if your psoas is tight, and it can cause some issues in the low back. So we just want to honor that and give that a little bit of lengthening. And then when you're ready, you walk your hands back through center and then walk your hands over to the other side. So again, before bed, this is a wonderful thing to do just to release your body, quiet your mind. It really helps to bring your nervous system back into balance and to calm your body down. Wonderful. And then come back in through center. Great. And then we're going to come on to our sit bones. So let's go ahead and find ourselves in a seated position. And we're going to go into Baddha Konasana. Probably do this every day. It's one of my favorite poses, a butterfly pose. So soles of the feet are going to come together, knees are going to remain wide, and spine is going to be long. You can do this propped up. So talked about the propping up of our hip bones. Absolutely, that's available. That also does feel really good. I'm just, for sake of time, I'm going to just stay here for now. You could come into a forward fold and just open up through the hips here. So just take a couple of deep breaths. You can shift your body side to side to allow your ischium, so your sits bones, to connect down in towards the ground. Wonderful. And then when you're ready, start to roll yourself up all the way up to a seated position. And go ahead and extend your right leg long, keeping your left foot in towards center. And we're going to go into Janu Shirshasana. So taking your right hand, resting it at your shin area or wherever your right hand lands, and turning your body, your trunk towards your left foot, your left bent knee. We're just going to glide our right hand all the way down, but keeping this opening through the heart space. So we're not crowding forward, not rounding forward, but opening up into a gentle lateral bend. We talked about the lateral implication of how the psoas helps with lateral movement. This is a wonderful, nice, gentle way to just stretch out in a lateral position. Also feels really nice and relieving, perhaps a little bit in the QL, in the quadratus lumborum area. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and sit up tall. And then go ahead and bring the right foot in towards center. Left leg extends out long. And this time we'll extend the left hand, pinky kind of rests on the leg, twist towards the right, and then just glide your hand forward. Now, if you're looking for a little bit more intensity because it feels available to you, you can always extend your upper arm over. Again, just coming as far as feels comfortable. We kind of want to rainbow that arm. And just as you do this, think about, we're not trying to round forward, but we're trying to open up through our heart, really inviting this idea of opening up. Wonderful. And then go all the way back and come right back in through center. Go ahead and extend your legs long. Wiggle the knees out just a little bit to loosen up through the joints. Great. And then let's come into a little quick Dandasana, into a forward fold, and talked about torso flexion. So we'll do a little bit of that. Extend the arms up overhead, reaching tall, breathing tall as if you're trying to pull your torso away from your hips, and then gently come into a forward fold. Maybe here, recite your mantra. I am open to receiving and to surrendering. I really associate forward folds with this idea of surrendering to myself, surrendering to the universe, surrendering to the bigger space around us. And then walk your hands back through center. Wonderful. Now, we're going to come down onto our backs. And before we do, we're going to begin our psoas shake. And I just want to just talk you through real quickly what's going to happen. So we're going to lie down on our backs. I'm going to sit up and I'm just going to guide you through. And we are going to come into Baddha Konasana. We're going to come into butterfly pose like we just did, but we'll be doing a reclining butterfly pose. So if you have blocks and coming into reclining butterfly doesn't feel good, you can always place your blocks underneath, and I'll just demonstrate here, underneath your knees. So that's a great way just to release any tension and kind of allow your legs to feel really nice and comfortable here. And that's really what I want you to begin with, is coming to this with a really comfortable, quiet space. If you're comfortable in Baddha Konasana, you can just begin right here. So go ahead and make sure you've got your blanket, your whatever you need to be warm and comfortable. And as we're going to go through our psoas shake, what's going to happen, and I'll just guide you through so that there's no surprises. Every minute, you're going to start in Baddha Konasana in butterfly pose. Every minute, I'm going to ask you to raise your knees in towards center about an inch. And you're going to hold that space. So you're going to raise your knees, come in through center, hold it there. And then you'll come in at the next minute, I'll say, okay, come up a little bit more, another inch. And then next minute, I'll ask you to come in again, another inch. I'll do that 6 times. Now, again, we talked about that idea of releasing, creating that tension in the muscle in order for it to release. So you are going to start feeling likely shaking. And it's going to feel as if your legs are wiggling forward and back. I can assure you from now, I can tell you now that is not the case. It might feel like that, but it's really not the case. So you are going to feel potentially that sensation of shaking in your hip flexor complex. Now, for some, this can feel very triggering. If it feels too much, please stop and just go ahead and find yourself in Shavasana. If it feels too much, but you want to continue, take a break. Extend your legs, give your legs a break, and then if you want to come back to it, you can. If at any time you have an emotional release or anything happens, it's okay. Please just let it happen, okay? Be kind to yourself. And if you feel nothing, that's okay too, all right? We're not trying to seek something. Just let your body be in its space today, okay? So go ahead and make your way onto your back. Your soles of your feet are going to come together. Make yourself comfortable and cozy. Quiet the space in your mind. We'll bring the soles of the feet together and we'll widen ourselves, our knees into Baddha Konasana, into butterfly pose. And just start to check in. See if you're holding any tension in your hip flexors here. And just draw your awareness to that space. Now I'm going to put a timer on so that we don't run over our minutes for each of these. So let's first begin by reminding ourselves of our mantra for today. I am open to receiving. I am open to surrendering. So let's begin there. Now, when you're ready, go ahead and raise your knees about an inch. And just hold it there. And begin just to notice maybe how your breath reacts. See if you can continue to keep that breath nice and fluid and soft. See if you can harvest this idea of surrendering, of letting go, as being the catalyst to healing. When you're ready, let's go ahead and bring our knees in another inch higher. Your soles of your feet are together, your knees are coming up a little bit more, maybe 2 inches now. Begin to notice your throat, your heart space, that loving space from within you. Allow your shoulders to remain soft. Let go of any bricks you're holding on to. Let them fly off your shoulders. Or let them seep into the earth. Let the earth absorb whatever it is you need to let go of. Now let's go ahead and raise our knees another inch, just a little bit more. And now perhaps you may start to feel the sensation of shaking. Remind yourself that this is a release. This is an opportunity to let go, to relax, to heal. Remind yourself that your knees are not shaking. You're not going to fly off. You are grounded. You are safe. You are secure. And now, when you're ready, perhaps draw your knees in a little closer towards, a little higher, another inch or so. And if at any point you start to feel emotional or something starts to conjure itself up, be accepting towards whatever it is without judgment. Being open to this idea of healing and letting go and surrendering to whatever is. Be it big, be it small, be whatever it is, it does not matter. Continue to breathe into the belly. Soften your face, your body, your shoulders. And whenever you're ready, maybe bring your knees up one more inch. A little bit higher towards each other. Perhaps you're starting to feel a little more intensity starting to build up from within. That is okay. That is absolutely okay. Think of its powers, its healing, this opportunity to completely let go. And just hold on to that space. As we come up to our last minute here, perhaps you want to come up one more inch. Simply observe. We have about 10 more seconds left. Stay where you are. Wonderful. Now slowly, please, I cannot stress this enough. Slowly bring both of your knees together. Widen your feet and come into constructive rest pose for a moment. And then when you're ready, slide your right foot long and then your left foot long. Close your eyes and simply notice. Let whatever coverings are covering you and let them seep away. Whatever layers of protection, let them release themselves. Let them not be barriers to you and your healing process and your opportunity of joy. Before we begin to reawaken our body, let's remind ourselves of our mantra of being open to receiving and surrendering. Begin to deepen our breath from our nose all the way down to our toes. Imagining the breath that you take inhale is love coming into your body, nourishing you, offering you support and care. And releasing as you exhale any thoughts, any feelings that are not supporting that joy that we seek from within. And with gentle awareness, begin to move your fingers and your toes, starting to stir your body awake. Maybe allowing your head to gently rock from side to side, or whatever else you feel you need. And at your own perfect pace, perhaps let's roll onto our favorite side. And let's take 3 breaths there. And then whenever you're ready, let's go ahead and find ourselves seated in our comfortable, easy seated position. Let us bring our hands to heart center. Anjali Mudra symbolizes this unity between us all being one. I am you, you are me, we are all one together. May your heart be soft. May your soul shine with love. And may you live with this opportunity of openness to receive and to let things go that do not serve you. Let us close our practice with a big inhale and exhale out through the mouth. Breathing in and out. May your heart always stay warm, and may your smile always stay broad. And may the light that shines in me always honor the light that shines in you. Namaste. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you who joined me today for this workshop. It means the world to me. I hope you got something out of it that added some benefit to maybe future practices you can do for yourself. I'm going to hang around a little bit longer if you have any questions. I feel more than happy to hopefully answer them. If I can't, then I'll figure something out. But if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask them. If you don't have questions, but you want to ask something privately, hopefully you have my email, and please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be glad to answer any of your questions.
Sharon,
Yes.
your mother must be so proud of you.
Oh,
She raised a beautiful daughter. Namaste.
thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very kind. Thank you.
It's so true.
Hi, Sharon. Thanks.
You're welcome, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sharon. That was
Oh,
beautiful.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thank you
Thank
all
you so much, Sharon. Great to see you.
Oh,
This
same
was
here.
fabulous. Just fabulous,
I'm,
Sharon.
thank you, Jane. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Happy day. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So-
Have a good day.
I will. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Holly, Deb, Disa, Pam, Rob, Carolyn. I'm so glad, Sabrina. I'm so glad we could be here together. Thank you for sharing this sunny day with me today. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay.
I just
No,
wanted
it's
to say
okay.
thank you, and it was nice
Oh.
to see you, Sharon.
Oh, Stephanie, it really means the world to me that you came. Thank you so much for coming today.
I have a quick question. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Can I not hear you?
Yeah, for some reason I can't hear you.
Go ahead.
Okay, I just wondered if that Psoas shape can be done in ice. Like, is that something that I could just do? Yes.
Can you hear me?
I don't know what the problem is.
That's my AirPods.
I didn't have any trouble hearing you the whole time.
Can you see the chat?
Yeah, I mean, I can hear you a little bit.
What are my AirPods on? If I speak a little louder, is that, can you hear me a bit better?
Yeah, a little bit.
So yes, you can do it regularly. previous exercises before. Something like that.
Like some sort of hip release.
Yeah, because if you go into it right away, that might be a little bit too much. You want to make sure that you give your body a little bit of a gentle practice, maybe 15, 20 minutes. We did it today for 6 minutes. However, you can do it for longer. I didn't want to do it longer because it's very intense. You can do it for 10 minutes as you kind of build up some endurance. But just take some time to do the previous exercise. And I'm going to send that to you in the handout.
Okay,
Okay?
that sounds good. Yeah, my battery died right in the middle. And it was like, ah!
I saw that you got in, but hopefully you weren't too, hopefully it was the last minute or so. Hopefully you got right back into it.
I did. I don't think I missed anything. I mean, I think you were just kind of right in the middle of it. So I just
Yeah.
longer than when you stopped.
Yeah. So Deb, you can definitely do it. There's no harm whatsoever. It is a very powerful technique, and it really does help you so bad. And you are an expressor, so yeah, I don't think
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much. It was good to see you.
same here, Deb. Thank you so much.
Bye.